Hello, hi Adeshege. Welcome to today's live session. I don't know if you can hear me. Hi. I'm just waiting for more people to join, then I'll start. Hello, the first. Can you hear me? Okay, all right. Great. Hello, everyone. My name is Funmilola Ogunseye. I'm a bookstagrammer, content creator, and a psychologist in training. Welcome to today's IG live session. Hello, Miss Jane. Great to have you here. So before we start, I would like to talk about Litireso. Litireso is a digital publishing platform which makes publishing easier for African authors and reading fun for readers. Literature distributes published books to over 18 African countries, and beyond, so that readers in those countries can buy books in their local currency. Reading on Literature is like reading a physical book, and you can continue reading your book from any of the devices. Hi everyone that is just joining in. So I was just talking about Literature and what Literature stands for and what they do. It is a digital publishing platform. I just wanted to just run through it before we start properly. And if you don't know, there is a reading competition currently ongoing. The reading competition, they are like participating books. So there are two participating books now. The first book is We Have Be Fearless, which is the book that I'm talking about now, and also I'm trying to get the other book. The other book is The Alphabet of Leadership. So what you do is you go to Litireso's website, www.litireso.com. Then you buy the books, read them, then do like a summary of 200 to 500 words where you talk about the book and just basically what the summary is. Then you'd send that. So if you just go to Litireso's Instagram account, you see the details, and you can actually win prizes. There's 30,000, 20,000, and there's 10,000 with other consolation prizes for everyone that participates in the reading competition. So I can see that our guest is here. Let me invite her or send a request. Okay. So I'm waiting for her to join. Welcome to everyone that is just joining today's live session. As I said before, hello, welcome.
Hi.
Hi. Okay, welcome to everyone that is just
Can you see
joining.
me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you clearly. Yes, I can.
Oh, I can't hear you. What's the volume?
Oh,
Just 1 second. I can't hear you.
okay.
Okay. Can you speak? Can I hear?
Can you hear me
Okay,
now?
I can hear you now. Yes.
Oh, great.
It was very faint earlier on, but now I can hear you. How are you?
I'm fine. I'm doing well. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm very fine.
All right, great. So I just want to read your bio for people that they might not know you. They should know you, but for people that don't know you, and even for people that know you, let's do like a reintroduction. So I'm sorry if I might butcher your name, but I would just like you to pronounce it now so that I can get the right pronunciation.
So which part? So it's Jane, which I'm sure
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
Egerton-Idehen.
Jane
Idehen is the
Egerton.
one that is tricky. Idehen. So don't say it as an I, say it
Yeah.
as an
Okay.
E. Idehen.
Okay. Idehen. Okay. Jane Egerton-Idehen. Right.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Jane
So she's a country
Egerton-Idehen.
Ide. So he's the country manager Nigeria and regional sales manager West Africa at Avanti Communication Group PLC. She's a master's degree holder from Warwick Business School, UK, and an executive education from Harvard Business School and Yale School of Management, with over 15 years of work experience, which is a whole lot. In the telecommunications industry, I experienced fans over numerous countries, including Nigeria, Ghana, and Liberia. A lover of knowledge and leading member of numerous reputable organizations. So, Jane is the author of Be Fearless, a book I just finished, and we have a lot to
Oh,
talk
you've just
about.
read it. That's
Yeah.
excellent.
So it's fresh in my mind. I'm excited to talk about it. So I hope you have the copy of the book because I would like you to read something later on as we progress in the. Okay, yeah, great, great. I read the e-copy
I
and it's on my
have
phone.
it.
So okay, so when I was reading the book, let me just like do a quick summary of what Be Fearless is. Be Fearless is like a book of it's about Jane's story. Also welcome to everyone that is just joining. You're welcome. Feel free to ask questions, leave your comments as we progress in the live session. So Jane's book is a book about a life story, and well, the grass to grace story is like something like that. But it's just about Jane's story, her experiences growing up in her house, growing up in her Jegule, and her having like big dreams, her like making sure that nothing was stopping her, not even in the corporate world, not even the gender, not even like corporate politics. So she chronicles her life story in this book, and it's not just like a book that she just like write a life story. I like how she backed it, or I like how you are here. Let me address you. I like how you
Thank
backed it
you.
up with facts. How you backed it up with facts. We're not just like saying things that they were not just sentimental things. You were able to like bring facts and bring statistics into the topic. And yes, it's your story. Like we all have our perspective and all of that, but it was also great just having like facts to back it up. So yeah, the first question I would like to ask is why was it important for you to share your story?
I think it was really important that I share my story because I think the best thing you can do with knowledge is to share it.
Mm-hmm.
The knowledge or experience is not just for you to experience it. I think it's more powerful when other people can learn from it.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons. That was the why, Because I always say that it was for my younger self, like the younger Jane. It was for that Jane, the metaphor for the young girl, young boy, still in the slums or still in a position or in a situation where things look impossible. And they're
Mm-hmm.
wondering, how am I going to achieve my dreams? How do I become that person that I really want to be? So for me, this is my little love letter to them. And it's
Okay.
also a way for me to share with my kids, my son, my daughter, about what I've experienced and how they can learn from it.
Okay. Oh, all right, that's great because also I'm a fan of people sharing their stories. I feel like we're all so different and we see life from different perspectives, and it's just important. Like everybody can't just be passing through it, and we're not like living part of ourselves as we go. Even like when people make impact, we've read stories about people from different parts of the world, people that we never got to meet, but because they left their stories, they left a part of them on earth before they left.
Yes.
We're able
We
to
get to
read and
hear, we get to
understand.
learn from them. Half of your mentors, half of the people that inspire you, maybe you never really get to meet them. You've only
Yeah,
read about their exploits, read their story, you have learned about their experiences, and you still learn from it. So
yeah, I
yes,
agree.
it is important.
Yeah, good. So as I was reading the book, one of the first things that struck me was how even from your university years, I don't know what year did you go to? What year were you in university?
So I got into university in 1995. That was a long time ago.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
And
So
I
and
finished
I
in
was like,
2001.
oh, okay, great. I realized that you spoke about patriarchy and gender disparity, and those were things that were like now everyone is woke, everyone is talking about it. Those are things that I'm sure back then it was not something that yes, people there were people that were fighting for it. We will not deny the fact that there were people that were talking about it, but it was not like as prominent as it is now. So looking at patriarchy, gender disparity from then and now, like is there any difference? Like, is there improvement? Like, do you think that back, like, when compared to being in university and now, do you think there's a difference between how women are treated and the whole societal issue, like, from your point of view now?
Well, I think in so many ways it's the same, and in other ways it has evolved. So if you really go back years ago, my mother couldn't really probably get a university education because when the chips are down, maybe her brothers would be prioritized because people will see that, oh, she will soon get married. So but I think in this generation, I wouldn't do that to my daughter. I wouldn't say, oh, you're going to get married soon, we shouldn't invest too much. But in so many other ways, it's still the same in the roles that women play in society, in the expectations we have of them. But in so many ways, we have moved on. We are far better. You know, there used to be time where even women couldn't, they couldn't move in some circles, in the leadership circles, in the communities, in the villages. In the people that would advise the king or the rulers. They were not allowed to be in those circles. They were not
Yeah.
allowed to attend those meetings where decisions are made, even about them. And that's why sometimes it didn't favor them. But these days is different, isn't it? These days we're seeing a change in that. So what I normally say is that it's so easy to say, oh, this is bad and this is wrong and this is good. In that time, because of the knowledge they had, they would live with some of these practices that were unhealthy. But now that we know better, we should do better. It's just
Yeah,
like if
true.
you come to Nigeria like 100 years ago, we were still killing twins, isn't it?
Yeah.
We thought it was an evil omen, and kids, two kids is not a good thing. But now we know better. We don't do that any longer. We know that that was entirely wrong. There's nothing wrong with the babies, and we shouldn't be killing them. So it's the same thing on how we treat women. If we see them as a token, sometimes it's almost like it's a token where, especially in the case of marriage, you have, hi Mo, I have Mo joining from the US. Hi Mo.
Well, I'm
Yeah. So we see them in a case like, when you're getting married, they pay the bride price. And have you seen a case where the marriage goes wrong? They actually go and ask for their bride price back.
yeah,
Sometimes they
yeah.
ask for the kids, as if for the kids as us, the goods are bad. So take back your money. You know, give me back my money, take back your bad goods, which is the wife. I'm keeping the kids. The kids are mine. So in so many ways, they were treated like a token in terms of the culture. Even like where I'm from, up until just a couple of years ago, which we stopped by law, but it's still prevalent. Even though I could be the first daughter, the most hardworking daughter, if it comes to inheritance, I don't stand a chance. Everything
Wow.
will be given to my brothers, and if they're not there, thank you so much, Mo. If my brothers are not there, my uncles will inherit it. I don't stand a
Wow.
chance to inherit anything from my parents. So you can see it's almost like, you're not even given a chance from the beginning. You're expected to carve out a niche for yourself in your
Yeah.
husband's place when you get married. And when your husband will take care, sometimes they will even say your husband will train you. They'll
Oh,
send the lady there and say the husband should train her. But it's
oh,
still prevalent even in modern society. I talk about it and I talk about some of those instances in my book. I would take a client for a dinner, for example, and the waiter or the waitress thinks that they profiled both of us and they're thinking the guy is always the one paying. So they
yeah.
spend all their attention on him and ignore you. You can't even get their attention. Left to them, you're just a second-hand guest. And
Yeah.
it comes to pay the bill and it's you that's paying the bill. Or sometimes it comes to paying the bill. So all these dynamics, and sometimes I don't blame them, is the way they have lived in the culture and they've come to accept that women have a certain role. So they haven't
Yeah.
really come to terms with that. We have evolved. And you can't send me to school to study engineering and I become an engineer. And you don't want me to operate as an engineer.
Sure,
But
sure.
that's what they taught me in school. But you want me to come home and just be a full-time housewife, throw away the engineering hat. That is not so yes, in so many ways, like I said, it's a thing of the past, but in so many ways, it's still prevalent in our
Okay.
society.
Okay. While writing the book, was there any difficult part or like a part that you thought, oh, should I put this in? Should I remove it? Was there any part like while writing the book?
Girl, there are lots of difficult parts, I must say. There were because when you're sharing your story, hi Chamaka, when you're sharing your
Hi.
story, what I say is that I was at a writer's workshop. I was doing a presentation and they were telling me to talk about writing and vulnerability. And I was quoting a very popular writer that said writing for him is like
Mm-hmm.
sitting at a typewriter and bleeding. And
Mm,
that's how
wow.
I felt sharing some of those things. It's very tough to put yourself up there to be scrutinized, to share your stories. Not all of them are, even though I tell them, not all of them were, when I was experiencing, I wasn't happy and hoo la la, all things are going well. I was probably having sleepless nights. I was crying. I was having a tough time. And now I'm trying to share that and the lessons learned. So sometimes those emotions will come because they're still raw. So there are parts of it that were really tough. Um, Lots of parts, the challenge I had with my job. I talk about how one of my bosses, I had a huge challenge. This is somebody I'd
Yeah.
worked with. And I was thinking about it the other night. We worked so well together, but he was the one that stabbed me the most.
No.
Like even now, I still find it difficult to comprehend, just because he was trying to protect his own job. So he was willing
Yeah.
to pass me on. So those kind of situations, when you share them, it still has pain in it. You don't forget. You might forgive, but then you still feel the raw emotions as share the you share the actual occurrence or the activities that led to that. And so many more, my days in Ajagua, some of them were really painful. So some of them, when you share them, the emotions are raw. When you talk about passing on food, and some days you don't live without food, or you don't see your school fees coming, and the anxiety that comes with it. It's as a young kid, it could be traumatic. Even I
Yeah.
feel that some of my reaction to situation, even as an adult, is because of my experience as a young person. Like of recent, what has happened was, I think I was talking to my husband once, and he was talking about, oh no, he's looking at future. He'll start his own business and all that kind of stuff. Immediately, I got into a panic mode. I'm like, you can't start your own business until this, and this. But what was really driving that? It was my fear of how my dad had resigned, and after he resigned, he couldn't figure it out, and for years we struggled. We couldn't pay school fees, we couldn't feed. That whole fear comes back, and you have to deal with it. You have to.
Yeah.
Hi, Phyllis. Phyllis, my
Hi,
friend from
everyone.
Ghana.
Oh, hi.
So
Hello.
yes,
Okay.
yes. So no, just back to what we were saying. That yes, some of those aspects in the book were really tough to share. So there were experiences that you share, but you share knowing that it was a tough time.
Yeah. That's great. Also you mentioned mentorship and sponsorship, and for someone like me, I've not really worked like in like the corporate world in that sense. But and also the idea of getting a mentor to me, yes, I have like people that don't know me that I look up to, and I'm like, oh yes, girl, this person like inspires me and all of that. But I don't have like a mentor, someone that like I share my career goals or whatever with. But in the book you really mention like the importance of mentorship and sponsorship. So for people like me that are like, is it worth it? Why do you think it's important for women and even women outside the corporate space to have like mentors and sponsors?
Okay, so I'll talk in general. I'll talk about career. So in general, it's always good to have a mentor, because when people have taken a journey, they have learned, they have made mistakes. If you're going to take the same journey, you don't need to go and make the same mistakes. The
Mm-hmm.
easiest way is to learn from them, to say, okay,
Yeah.
you did this, you did that in this situation, how did it occur? So that's where mentoring comes handy, because if I want to take an unknown journey, why don't I look for somebody? You do that when you do research. You go and look for people that have done something similar, had a similar experience, exposure, and you try to figure out what were their outcomes, what were the decisions they took. And that's why we read books. Of
Mm-hmm.
course,
Yeah, true.
reading books is another way of getting mentoring from people that you even don't know. But if you have people that um, you can physically engage with, oh, that would be perfect. You can literally find time and share your fears, your concern, your aspirations with them. So that's in
Yeah.
principle, and it applies everywhere, even in business. It doesn't have to be in career, even in creatives. Because if you go and speak to someone that's been in the creative industry for years, they will tell you. And it's just sometimes it's a way you frame your question. If you had to do it all over again, which parts would you change? Which part would you do better? And they would tell you, if I had to do it all over again, maybe I'll be more conscious about my talent. Maybe I would have thought a way how to put it, uh, I'd consider the financial aspects of sharing my talent. There'll be all kinds of things they will tell you, which you as a young creative wouldn't probably have thought about. You're giving it out for free. You're thinking, people don't need to pay for it. but you forget that you have to survive. There's a part of you that still has financial needs. And if those needs are taken, you would value yourself in a way that you can create better quality work.
Yeah.
But why I also specifically talk about it in career, because in most sectors in life, because of how generally we have evolved as human beings, women have kind of found their way. But I think
Mm-hmm.
women only really got into the formal sectors maybe after the Second World War.
Mm-hmm.
And most times they bring the ingrained habits of being women or housewives, or what the culture has taught you, especially if you're living in a patriarchal culture. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes those models don't work in the office.
Mm-hmm.
You
Yeah,
understand?
true.
So it's important that they be aware that yes, in a normal setting, if you wanted to go on a date, the guy will ask you out on a date, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you guys are dating and he wants to get married, he's going to ask you, he wants you to be his wife. But in the formal sector, in organizations, that's not how it works. You don't sit down and wait until your boss tells you, oh, you're due for a promotion. You don't wait. Those things don't. That's not how it works in the career world. So that's why we are saying that you can't bring some of those habits. You have to drop them because you're
Mm-hmm.
used to not speaking for yourself. Other people speak for you. But in organizations, that's not what you're expected. You're expected to speak of yourself. You should be
Mm-hmm.
comfortable speaking of your work. There's nobody speaking for you.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's great. So, right now, I'd like us to just segue a little bit and go into like the book reading session. Probably just pick somewhere that
Okay.
you like or somewhere that you like to share with our
I thought you
audience.
were going to tell me where to read. You read the book. Tell me which part you like and I'll read it. Tell me the part
um,
that intrigued you or the part you want us to read some more.
okay, maybe when you were confused about moving to Ghana or staying, I don't know the exact chapter.
Okay, I think it's under Egerton and I. Is that okay? Let me see. I'll find it. Um, I'll try and get that part. I think it should be
Okay.
under Egerton and I.
Just before you read them, we have some comments. So Mo said we also need to differentiate between a sponsor and mentor, which you did like very well in your book. Then
Oh
Phyllis said
yes.
exactly you have to be proactive and stand up for yourself. Yeah. So okay. Yeah. So
Mo is so right in that because for a long time we would use both languages the same, but they're really, really different. I think politicians understand it better, but we need to understand it in what we do. And it's easy. I'll give you an example. Let's even talk about the example. You know how I met Mo? So I had a podcast
okay.
um, with a lady. I just met her. I introduced myself. I said I wanted to do. I just randomly sent an email. She had a podcast, and after the podcast, she told me there's somebody I would like you to meet. I think you'd be a
Okay.
good guest on her podcast, and she
Oh,
introduced me to Mo. But after being
wow.
introduced to Mo, we had done so many other things together. Like I believe like Mo's got my back. Like she's introduced me to other podcasters. We've done programs together. So if I bring that back to differentiating the mentor and the sponsor, the mentor, like we said, is that person that you're learning from their experience, they're sharing. Sometimes they're really hands-on. They want to see your goals. They want to influence it. Have you thought about this? Did you think about this? You should think about this. You should avoid this. You should go there. You should go here. The sponsors sometimes are not that detailed, but what the sponsors do is that they use their power. They use their access to get you stuff. The mentors necessarily don't have to do that. Sometimes they don't have it, but the sponsors have it. They're the people speaking on your behalf. Sometimes you don't even really know them. You probably just had
Yeah.
one or two encounters, or they admire you from a distance. Have you ever had a call? Someone calls you and say, "Oh, Temilade," or Chiamaka, or Moji, whoever is on the call. We're considering you for this position. And so this person has been speaking highly of you and says we should go get you. We really want you. And you'd be like, who is this person? Like, I only met him once, so I don't really know him that well. We met somewhere, we just spoke briefly. But that's what sponsors do. They actually go head on to use their own access and power to open the doors for you. And sometimes they don't even have to know you that well. And we're teaching women to use that ability. It's used a lot in the political sectors, but women have to learn to use it in other aspects of their life, because we're so used to keeping things to ourselves and hoping that people notice us, they find us, they see us. We should be comfortable talking about our successes. And men are so good at it. I'm not trying to be biased, but I think we encourage men to be assertive. We don't encourage women to be assertive. It's seen as being too aggressive or too forward. So most women try to dial back. Have you heard them say dial back? Because they're like, oh, no, she's too dialed back. They want you to tone it down a bit. But we are saying, don't tone it down a bit. Don't dial back. You understand? Because when you do that, that's how sponsors find you. You can imagine hearing you speak, and I'm like, she's so good. I like her. If tomorrow I'm going to do something like this, I would like her to be on it. And maybe tomorrow I start an initiative, a project, a program, a company, and I recall that girl was so good, we should get her. And probably that's the opportunity you needed to open the doors for you. And there have been many times in my life, I've had sponsors open that door for me. And sometimes when they do it, by the way, disclaimer, it's not all the time. It's a wonderful experience. And I talk about it in the book. When I was going for that position, and this guy was literally opening the doors. All the things he did were not very comfortable. I'll give you an example. I just met him out of the blues, and I started complaining to him that I've been applying for some role. Hi, Helen. Hi, Phyllis. That I'm not getting that role, and I think that this company is not ready for women, because very few women have ever held that post. He smiled. I'm like, no, why are you talking about this? And I'm like, yeah, that's how I feel. I just said it because at the spur of the moment, I felt displeased, and I felt I'm this good, and why don't they see me? Why don't they pick me? And I go away. This guy, after like an hour, comes to me and say, hey, you see that guy over there? I need you to go talk to him and tell him about all your experience. I'm like, why? There's an opening, and he's the one recruiting for the opening. Now I start feeling a bit, like, this is weird. Why would I just go and start talking to a guy and tell him about how good I am? Like, women are used to men coming after you, isn't it? You're not used to going and saying, have you met Jane? This is what Jane has done. Like, I am so good. I did this. I did that. I worked on this. And I remember doing it that night, and I go back to my hotel room. I felt very dirty. I'm like, oh, this is so weird. This is so weird. Like, I spent the evening trying to sell myself to a guy. Like, this is so, so weird. The next day, it didn't stop. The next day, we're in a small conference of just like a management team. The CEO was then presenting. And after this, oh, by the way, then I walk into the room like a normal woman would do. Guess what I did? I walked to the back of the room. Like that, 90% of the people at the room are men. So me and a couple of women, we just go and stay at the back. We're with our phones. We're just chatting away and ignoring them, whatever. This guy calls me. I'm like, Jane, come. So I think, oh, he's calling me. He needs to ask me something. He draws a chair and said, sit next to me. Like, now, this is the front of the row with the most senior people. So all the time, I am very uncomfortable. Like, my legs are shaking. I'm wondering, why is he doing this? This is so unfair. I'm so uncomfortable. I can't play with my phone because all eyes on you. You're right at the beginning of the table. Then the CEO finished presenting, and he asked the question that, oh, he's meant to present to a bigger audience the next day, but he thinks it will be too much boring for him to do it. He wants somebody in the room to say everything he said the next day to the larger audience. And guess what this guy did? He raises up his hand and he said, Jane will do it. Jane said she will do it. I never said anything to him. If there was anything, I was probably sweating on that seat. Phyllis, you're so right. That's a seat at the table. So it's not always very comfortable. He knew what I needed to do to get the role. I didn't know. What he was doing was positioning me. But I was feeling very uncomfortable because I'm not used to dealing in that manner. That's not how I dealt, So I was like, the way he looked at me, like, don't better say no. So I agreed I would do it. So you can imagine what happened. I didn't sleep that night. I was sweating, calling everybody. Did you take notes? Did you remember what they said? But, I tried to figure it out. And the next day I went and I presented. What he was trying to do was sell me to the management. Those were the
Yeah.
people going to make the call. He wanted them to see how good this girl is. He knew I was
Wow.
very good. I could present very well, and I understood the business. But what best way to say it is to get her to do it so the people that will make the decisions see that. And that was excellent. After that, you were like, she's so good. Oh, like, it's like, I didn't know that you worked on this project. I never know you. Because in telling that story, I did it in hindsight, bringing it back home to the things I was doing and how the company is supported. So those are the things he was doing. I didn't know. I didn't know that when they had the executive management meeting, he was pitching my name for that role. Like, no, this girl
Wow.
can do it. And people were like, but we don't know who this girl is. We've never really worked with her. We're not too sure. It's like, then do you know what he does? He comes and calls me. I'm like, oh, by the way, I need you to talk to this guy, this guy, this guy. Talk to them about your experience. And I'm like, this is really getting very uncomfortable. I cannot be calling people out of the blues and trying to talk them into understanding that I'm good, because that was not my way. I think the normal guy would have found that okay. He probably would have taken the guy to the bar, they'll have drinks, they'll talk to the guy. But being a woman, most of us would be like, weird. That is really weird. Because it's normally the other way. The guys come chasing after you,
Yeah.
isn't it? You're like smiling and blushing, and the guy is asking you 1 million questions. So that's why I thought it was important that women be aware.
Okay, great.
Yes,
So
Chiamaka, you're right.
Chiamaka said you need to speak up because no one is going to do so for you in the workplace. This is point on. Yes, that's true. And Phyllis said, yes, sponsors bring your name up in powerful conversations, which you also mentioned, and it's true. Then Adeshege said, Mrs. Jane has been bold for us at Litireso. I think he was talking about being a mentor and a sponsor. Oh, that's great.
Yes.
Ellen is saying, I Phyllis said, you have the key holder. Yes, a seat at the table. Yes, that's according to what you said. Sponsors can bring you like a seat at the table. Then Ellen is asking a question: how do you learn how to speak up for yourself and not be tagged proud in the workplace? I think that's an interesting question.
I think in the beginning it's very uncomfortable if you're not used to doing it. So in the early days, like I said, I would go back to my hotel room. I feel very dirty. Like, why can I just be talking to the whole night, talking about myself, what I did. But one of the basic things you can start from, talk about what you've done. I think it's tougher if you're trying to lie or if you're trying to brag or embellish the truth. Just stick to the facts. And one way you could do it is keep a journal. Sometimes we take it for granted. You achieve a certification, write it down. You wrote your first
Mm,
article, write it down. You got an award for this, write it down. You worked on a project that did excellently well, write it down. You helped support this business. Just keep it in a small, you can decide a journal or what, you write it down. Once they are facts, you're not lying. You're just
yeah.
stating a fact. Then the next thing, you try to work it in little bits. So you can start with your friend, people that you're close to, and that's how I test it. It's like you're having lunch with your friend and she says, like, oh, interesting enough, I worked on a project. It was an AI project, and do you know what we did? We did this, this, and this, and I was the lead project manager. I felt so proud working on that project. So you're comfortable in that environment, in that zone. And you see their reaction, then you start to refine the language. And the next thing is to get ready to do similar acts when you have influencers. It could be influencers in your sector, influencers in your organization, influencers in the marketplace where you exist, or in the business sector, in the talent pool. You should be comfortable to talk about what you've done. State the facts. Yes, Mo is right. Evernote and Google are good places you can actually
Yeah.
keep, because that's what I was doing in the beginning. In the beginning, I actually used to write it because it was easier to document it and go back. Like before I have an interview, if I knew, take for example, if I knew the CEO of my company is coming to my country, one of the good things you do, go back to your notes and read all those achievements. You might meet him in the coffee store. You can meet him in the hall. There can be some engagements or a little breakout session. Everybody's brainstorming and they say, talk a bit about yourself. How best to introduce yourself? Instead of saying the boring, my name is Jane, I graduated in 2001, you just say, my name is Jane, I worked on this project, and this project achieved this, I worked on this, I wrote my first article at this, I did, and they're facts. And you see the guys say it so easily. So They could bore you with so many details that you don't even want to hear about. But the more you do it, the more you get comfortable. So you can get comfortable doing it because people don't know you. Remember, that guy doesn't know you. That CEO, that head of department, that governor, that head of that senator, that mayor, they don't know you. How best to know you? To talk about what you've done. And they're facts. You're not lying. So just state the facts. And that's all I'm asking. Once you start to do that, you start to get comfortable to the fact that you don't only state the facts, you talk about your aspirations. This is what I would like to do. This is what I would like to achieve. This is what I'm passionate about. And that gives people a sense of where you're going.
Okay, yeah.
So
before
Helen,
you
I hope
read,
I answered your question.
okay.
Yeah.
Hi everyone that is just joining. I can see Jumoke, Dadan, Afro Youth. We are talking about Mrs. Jane's book, Be Fearless, which we've been discussing about like the
Hi,
themes and
Jumoke. I had to say hi to her. I'm sorry.
all right. And we're discussing the themes and some of the things that she touched in the book. So if you are yet to read the book, our book is currently available on Litireso's website and app for Android users. So she's going to read she's going to read a part or a portion of the book now before we continue the interview session.
Okay, so I'm thinking, where should I read? I was trying to find out where we should read.
Okay.
Should we read Getting a Foot at the Door?
Oh yeah, that's fine.
Okay, I'll read Getting a Foot at the Door. I think it will be so relevant for some of us here.
Okay.
After graduating from university, I spent more than 3 months walking around Lagos looking for a job. 3 months sounds like a short time now, but the anxiety and fear that drove me made it seem like forever. Every morning I asked for transport fare from my dad, who was not working and still struggling to feed the family. The guilt and shame will kill me. I had been told, get a degree and you'll get a job. What they didn't tell me was that the jobs were not there. They were not just there waiting for you. Living in an environment in which most people did not have a chance to get an education left me with very few mentors or role models. Hope became a priceless asset because there was no one to show me the ropes. I leaned on a small group of people I had bonded with in the jungle, who like me were seeking a way out of poverty via education. We shared similar desires for reassurance and direction. We were dreamers, encouraging each other and holding ourselves accountable. I noticed that the biggest hurdles to cross in my job hunting campaign were the security guards and gatemen at the establishments to which I wanted access. They quickly turned you back if you had no clue who you wanted to meet in the company. After a couple of failed attempts, I put together my go-to list of titles. I asked for the human resource manager, operations manager, or the administration officer. In some cases, I got a yes, and in other cases, I was shown the door out. But I kept at it. One time, I almost fainted at the bus stop due to what I know now was a heat stroke. I didn't want to give up. I was so scared. I felt my entire family was banking on me. So that's page 30, 32 and 31. Getting a foot at the door.
Okay.
I like that. I like that paragraph because I think it talks about, like we're talking about mentors. Sometimes there's peer-to-peer mentorship. And that is where I found solace at that time. I didn't have like people way up the, rooting for me. But I had people like me that were that ambitious, were dreaming of how we're going to use education and change our world. So we used to hang around together and encourage each other, share information, talk about, oh, I read about this, I read about that. I think you should try this. I think you can try that. So thank you, Chemaka. She said she likes that portion of the book. That's another way you can get mentorship. You can actually get peer-to-peer mentorship. And I think later on in the book, I talk about my friends are almost like a support system for me.
Yeah.
They are also like my mentors, I had a bit of a challenge one time. I was making a big decision. and it was going to influence my career and my family life, my marriage. And it was really tough. At some point, I think my husband and I couldn't see eye to eye, or we couldn't agree on. Guess what? We actually had to weigh in our friends, like phone calls all through the night. They're like, I'm not talking to you, but my friend will call like, oh, your husband just called me and this is what he feels. I think you're not listening. Or, the other one calls and like, okay, this is my perspective. Have you considered his perspective? So yes, you can actually get peer-to-peer mentoring. That's another good thing, you can also rely on. Because it's not every time you can find mentors. There's some phases in your life you don't find mentors, like physically
Yeah.
people that have experienced it that you can engage with, but you can actually do peer-to-peer mentorship. Now,
Okay.
one of the things I liked about talking about this part of the story is hope. I think I shared something on my Instagram yesterday about hope. Hope
Okay.
is so important. If you look at what is happening now
Yeah.
globally, people are losing jobs, people are sick, people are falling ill. So it kind of feels like everything is going downhill, especially when you watch the news. They keep telling you the numbers are rising, the economy is
Yeah.
going to crash. You need hope
Yeah.
to
True.
keep moving. Because if you don't have hope that something positive, it could be a positive outcome, you start
Mm.
getting depressed and you don't see the glass half full. You don't bring out your best. You don't use your talent. You don't use your skills. You're literally waiting for the doomsday. So hope is
Yeah.
so important.
Yes, and I think that when I was reading your book, that was something that it really like came to me was because there will be someone that might be in a similar situation that you were in, or even something like just like distressing, and just reading your book and seeing someone that it's not like she had opportunities were handed over to her, she had to fight for it, she had to work for it. It's like, oh, okay, this is like a thumbs up that okay, keep going. Someone has done it, therefore I too can do it. So I feel like that's one thing that the book would actually like reinforce the hope that okay, you don't have to always have everything figured out. You don't have to come from like a family that you have connections ready for you. You can actually like get this stuff when you're actually determined to get them. So I feel like that was really like that was a really good and it stayed with me after I read the book. So Mo asked a question. She said, can you talk about life coaches and how important they've been to you, assuming you value them?
Oh, I really do. There are all kinds of coaches, though. So you can have a career coach, a life coach. A life coach is more broader in the sense that
Okay.
they just don't focus on your career in terms of, your value system, how you respond to life and different manner. And I think sometimes we take it for granted. Maybe it's an African thing where we're not used to going for professional help. We want to wing it. But why don't you make less errors by getting people that can support you? So
Okay.
coaches are slightly different from mentors as well. So mentors have experienced it and they're guiding you or they're supporting you based on their experience. Coaches are professionals that will use professional tools to guide you in decision making, in crafting a plan. Because what coaches are actually doing is using professional tools to help you get to know yourself better. Because number one, that is the biggest strength. If you know you, then you can decide how you can use your strengths to influence your work, influence the environment around you, and be a better person. So they use that to bring that. It's like holding a mirror to you to see yourself. And when you see yourself, you see your strengths and your weakness. It's easier to carve a path, isn't it? If I know I'm not
Yeah.
a good singer, why am I trying to be a musician? You know, because I've done an assessment, I've decided, okay, I'm not a good singer, so maybe I should think about other parts of the creative industry. Maybe not being a singer might not be the best, especially if you're trying to go for the top or you're trying to evolve to be either one of the highest cadre of that industry. So coaches do that. Coaches also give you tools that help you in things like decision making. Like I was talking about, being at a roadblock at one time with my husband. We couldn't decide. He had his idea what we should do. I had my idea what we could do. We were like at a roadblock and an impasse. We're like, no, I want it this way. He wants it. We were not listening. So what coaches will do, actually, they give you tools to help you. How people can hear each other, because sometimes you're not listening because you're beclouded by your own personal judgment, your past experiences. They all becloud your perspective. You're seeing it through your lens, not through the other person's lens, and showing empathy. So they help you with those kind of tools. And I find that so valuable. My first experience with a coach was having gotten a new job role. That was something I have been aspiring for 7 years. Now I get it and I'm struggling with it. And sometimes it's difficult. And you tell yourself, we'll do it, we'll do it. If you really want to do a good job, you might start thinking about how can I be the best. It doesn't mean you don't have it. It's like refining a tool so that it cuts better. It creates lasting impact. It's not rough around the edges. And that's what coaches do. So that's when I decided to seek for help. And sometimes it doesn't have to be career. It could be managing your marriage, managing your emotions, figuring out your life purpose, managing your mental state of being. Coaches are so good at helping you with those tools. But remember that it's a two-way street. Why I love coaching is the fact that they're professionals. So remember your mentors. You can't just call up your mentors anytime you like. You don't show up in their house anytime you like. But with coaches, it's a formal process. There's an agreed time. They're always there. If you're going to spend 1 hour every month at this certain time, they're waiting for you there. So you're sure. In working with mentors, so you don't have that kind of flexibility or consistency. Sometimes there's a mentor, you've been chasing this person for like 3 months, 6 months. You can't even get a phone call with them. Or for like a year, you have to, so it's when they're available because it's informal. With coaches, it's formal, but it is a paid service. I've not seen any free coaching yet. Maybe people get offered once in a while. But because they're professional, it's a paid service. But it's an investment worth it. So if I bring it back to my life, I think where I am today has a lot to do with coaching. Like I said, you could be rough around the edges. It's the coaches that help you. It's like plucking a plant. You take away the dead leaves, isn't it? So that the good leaves will blossom and the flower will come out. But if you didn't do that, the plant will still grow, but it won't grow as much and beautiful as it should have been. So that's what the coaches do for you. So they help you refine because they're bringing all that tools and knowledge together to help you refine that. Yeah. I hope I answered it, Mo.
Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
she got it. We have to hurry now because Instagram will cut us off after 1 hour. We are almost there.
Okay.
So just quickly, I would like you to say like 3 things that were important to your development as a woman in the corporate world. Maybe 3 principles or 3 things that were important to your development as a woman in the corporate world.
So I would say self-awareness is important. You have to know
Okay.
yourself, like self-awareness, self-management. You have to know your strengths, your weaknesses, because if you know all those things, you know, okay, this is my strength. So when is the time for your strength, you make it shine. If it's time for your weakness, you try and manage it. You get people that can support you. You look for tools that can help you, or you just minimize the impact of that weakness. Then, like we said, mentoring, coaching, support system is so important. People around you, your husband, your sisters, your close friends, don't take them for granted. Sometimes we do. Be intentional about it. Be intentional about building those relationships. They are so important as you go along the way. Then I'll say if you have to act, and so I talk about the importance of your support system. Then I'll say in the
Mm-hmm.
point of mentoring, like we said as well, mentoring and sponsorship. I think they've been so important. Sometimes we take it for granted. Now we know the difference. So mentoring, sponsorship, and coaching, they've all have, in one way or the other, influenced my path positively.
Okay, so Chiamaka said, did you have a coach for public speaking?
No, I didn't. Funny enough, that was one of my strengths. For public speaking, initially I had a mentor I worked with, and he was very good. He was very detailed, and he used to give me audience a lot. So I could even do like a dry run for him. But I didn't have a coach for that. I did most of the learning myself. So I went
Okay.
for trainings myself. I read books. I actually did more investment on myself personally on that.
No, okay. Great. We're almost at the tail end of this session. But what book are you currently reading now? I'd like to know the book you're currently reading now.
Oh, I think I spent more time working on my book than. But of recent, I went back to some of the books I bought that I haven't read. And I think the one I'm currently reading is not I think, the one I'm currently reading is Becoming by Michelle
Okay.
Obama. I bought it
Wow.
like a year ago, but I couldn't read it because I was like, hey, I'm not reading any book until I'm done with my book. So I'm back to reading it. So I'm enjoying it.
Okay. So what and what's the parting word you have for women, like someone that was in your, like someone maybe that was in your state when you were younger and doesn't know how to figure out life, or just trying to make it in quotes? What would you say to that person?
Make it a quote. Well, you could start with trying to figure out what is the make it, what are you
Yeah,
trying
true.
to make, because the thing you have to understand, we all have a different make it. My make it is not your make it. I'll tell you what happened to me today. Today I was checking a list of people that, I know, and I'm like, oh, this person is there, this person is there. Oh, they're all doing well. Then I start getting anxious. Then something told me that, Jane, do you really want to do what they're doing? Why are you getting anxious? Sometimes we should stop comparing ourselves. Their own journey is different, your own journey is different. So to that person, I say, sometimes there's an anxiety when you compare. If you
Mm-hmm.
can learn to minimize the anxiety by really focusing, you have told yourself this is where you want to go. Can you just focus your energy on it? Get to know people. Get to see people that already done it before. Get to read about it. Get to go for it. Keep yourself busy on your track. Try not to get too confused. Yes, that guy might be, he might be blossoming today. And you're wondering, hey, I should have just done what he did. But that's not your path. It might take you longer. Like I always say, I spent the first 27 years of my life living in AJ City. When I say it now, it sounds, it was a lot of pressure because I thought by 25, I would have got myself a house, I would have graduated, I'll get a car, I'll be working in this company. By 27, I was still sleeping in the floor in my parents' house under a leaking roof at 27. But it doesn't stop me from being who I am today. So if I was judging at that side and comparing, which sometimes I was, I remember one day I was walking on the road because sometimes I didn't have money. I had to trek from church to my house, and it was far. My church is in Sulere, my house is in Ajegula. Just do the math, all the way through mile 2. And I was passing one time, I saw my classmate. She was driving a brand new car. Like I hid. I felt so sad that day, and I look at my classmates. I am here. Look at me here. And this girl is driving a brand new car. But today, is a different story. So try not to compare. I know it sounds so easy and cliche. But if you can, minimize the anxiety and, focus on what you're trying to do. Your journey is different.
Yeah. So, like she said, our journeys are different. Thank you, everyone, for joining today's live session. It has been
Yeah.
powerful and insightful. Also, don't forget there's a reading competition where you can actually win some money. Just you can read more on Litireso's Instagram account. Thank you, everyone. I'll be ending the live chat now. Bye.
Bye. And thank you too, guys.